Years ago, in a lovely town called Mangai, there lived a humble, responsible woman by the name of Kadajatu. She worked as an accountant in a local agricultural NGO. Her salary was not much, but she spent it wisely, putting her younger sister through nursing school, looking after her arthritic mother, and never missing a payment. She was the kind of woman who didn't wear blaring colors or follow fashion. Her friends would tease her, "You're behaving like the nation's firstborn," and smile and retort, "Somebody has too." Her existence was humble, stabilized, foreseen, until Usman Yalo appeared in her life like a sharpened dagger in velvety. They met at her cousin's wedding. He had on a dark blue kaftan. His cologne struck before he arrived. His beard took the shape of geometry, and his words, sweet enough to dissolve her framework, "I prefer peaceful women," he added. Noisy women drain my serenity. Kadajat had no idea at the time, but those words were the beginning of a thread in an intricately woven trap he claimed he was in. The business of importing cars. He produced photos, receipts, and took calls before her that ended with, "Yes, boss." He came after work, brought shawarma occasionally, flour sometimes, and even promised to pay for her sister's nursing textbooks. He seemed like a blessing. There was this one night, sitting beneath the neem tree behind her compound, when he took her hand and said, "I want to build. And I want to build with you." And so it happened that she thought perhaps, just perhaps, someone had arrived to bear her burden. They had a lovely traditional wedding. Her mom wept tears of happiness. People told her she was blessed, that she caught a man during a time when many were catching heartbreak. And then the suggestion of a shared account Usman referred to it as oneness, trust, and constructing the future together. Kadajat hesitated. She enjoyed control. She enjoyed planning, but each protest was matched by emotional guilt. "If you don't trust me, why call me husband?" At the bank, a cheerful woman named Aminata assisted in opening the account. But when Kadajatu's information wouldn't save, the woman smiled and said, "It's okay. Just use his name. You trust him, right?" Those words would haunt her. From that day on, the account belonged to Usman on paper, and in reality, her salary went in, her name didn't count. She became an unknown donor to her own marriage. The slow draining, it seemed fine at first. Bills got paid, groceries were purchased. But then the fridge was empty, the generator was not needed. Her shoe ripped and remained ripped. Her mother's pain medication ran out. And whenever she requested something petty, even sanitary towels, Usman would utter, "Why are you concerned with things? I love you the way you are." But his love was accompanied by void. Kadajata resorted to borrowing transport fare. From junior personnel, she began walking to work simply to conceal her humiliation. She ceased purchasing lotion, mixed Vaseline with water, wore the same two pants every week, stopped querying, stopped hoping, and yet, every month she paid her salary into the account until one day, she discovered a receipt under the bed, 350,000 withdrawn 2 weeks ago and last week. She had worn folded old wrappers instead of sanitary pads. She looked in his wallet, discovered more receipts. 120,000, 95,000, even a 200,000 payment to Skylight Lounge, a club he'd never visited. That evening, she made use of his fingerprint while he slept to access his banking app. The amount 14,047, that was all that remained. Her mother's medicine was 5,000, the house help salary. In arrears, she hadn't purchased herself a bra in months. She queried him the following morning, shaking, devastated. "Where is the money?" he jeered. "Why are you questioning me like EFCC?" I said it's for investment. "What investment?" He didn't respond. Walked out with his bag, grumbling, "You don't trust me, that's your problem." The explosion shortly later, she discovered an unusual wig in the bathroom. "Whose is this?" she asked. He replied, "My cousin dropped it." What cousin? He growled, "Don't start." That evening, she discovered a second telephone. Locked, concealed, she understood. She was wedded but not wed. From that month, she ceased to give, not to struggle. But because there was nothing more to offer, until the notice of eviction found its way into her palm. The betrayal revealed after he left her, she visited his car business in Londa. It was shut. One neighbor told her, "He hasn't opened in 2 months." I think he went to Senegal, and then the coup de grace. Her former classmate Fatima, now a financial literacy counselor, texted her a picture. Usman, in a white suit, cutting a cake. With Aminata, the very same woman from the bank, the caption, "Congrats to Aminata and Usman, wishing you joy in your new journey, new journey." So the woman who accused the server of hanging was in on the scheme. She wasn't merely deceived. She was stolen from, cheated on, used by a group, the fight back. Khadijah dried her tears and got forensic. She pulled receipts, traced transfers, tracked imposter business accounts, and located everything. Every fib, every cabo, every account, she forwarded it to Fatima, who sent it to the Office of Financial Fraud. They froze the account. Days after, Usman's message appeared, "You think you're smart. I'll deal with you. You can't embarrass me and go free." She smiled. Because now the war had just begun, the rising woman Khadijah started a WhatsApp group, Account with Eyes, for women building wisely, not blindly, 100 members within a week. All with the same story, "He drained me. I believed love was silence. I was mistaken." She created a Facebook page, a YouTube account, gave seminars, taught women to question, request receipts, put their names on paper. One day, a private bank called and asked her to educate their employees on how to detect financial abuse. And Usman, detained, arrested, charged, along with Aminata, the banker who assisted him to plunder women in the name of love. The lesson: I didn't just lose money, Khadijah said to a radio station one day. I lost years, my dignity, my voice. But I found something stronger, myself. Love is not blind trust. If the joint account is only joint by word, you're a donor, not a partner. The backlash: some men in town didn't appreciate what Khadijah was doing. She's teaching women to be obstinate. A taxi driver grumbled. She dispersed homes with her women's rights talk soon. Even her uncle complained. What you're doing is good, but too loudly. People will assume you're bitter, but bitterness wasn't driving her. Equity was. For too long, women had learned that endurance was their glory. Khadijah was giving them a different glory, wisdom, prudence, and dignity. She began by weekly live online chats. Every Saturday at 8 p.m., her most went viral topic: before you say I do, say let me see the receipts. Impact expands. The Account with Eyes movement went viral. In Gunjur, 16 women organized a savings club with legal framework. In Bas, a widow came forward and said that Khadijah's video saved her $100,000 from an unscrupulous ex-fiance. Banks started asking her to train employees on how to identify account tampering among couples. A private microfinance bank mentioned, "Your story changed our protocol." No more single name joint accounts, but amidst her success, Khadijah experienced emotional breakdown. The crash one evening. After streaming a Facebook Live session, she closed the laptop and just sat there by herself. The camera was turned off, the lights were low, and in that moment, she whispered, "Who builds me now?" She had become a voice for many, but still felt like a woman who lost too much. A text from her sister popped up. "Annie K, don't forget, you're not just a survivor, you're a builder now. Keep building." That message saved her that night. Spiritual rebirth. A few days after that, Khadijah went to a peaceful prayer house on the outskirts of town. Hunched down in the last pew, head in her hands. Not praying for wealth or vengeance, just peace. The older woman who led the prayers strode up to her and spoke. You're the one who teaches women they shouldn't be afraid. But don't you forget, you deserve love too. Don't let pain persuade you to live alone for the rest of your life. Khadijah cried, and on that night, she resumed writing again, not about betrayal, but about renewal, reconnection, and hope months later. A handwritten note arrived one afternoon from a woman in Nigeria. It said, "I am Esther. Your tale enabled me to leave an abusive marriage that financially drained me. I now run a small palm oil business, and I've started my own account with Eyes Group here. Thank you, sister." Attached was a photo, 12 women holding signs that said, "Ask questions, demand accountability, build with eyes open." Khadijah placed the photo on her wall and whispered, "This is my new family." The book, The Law and the Future in 1 year's time. Khadijah wrote a book entitled Joint Account, Empty Pocket, The Hidden Cost of Silent Wives. It was a bestseller in the Gambia, Sierra Leone, and Ghanaian cities. She used the proceeds to pay for legal aid for women being financially abused. At the same time, Usman and Aminata were charged with several things, not only fraud, but conspiracy and breach of trust. And although Khadijah didn't miss a single court hearing, she ensured her name was entered into every document, not as victim, but as whistleblower. Full circle to years later, Khadijah went back to the bank where her name had once been unable to save. She wore the same green skirt she wore the day she opened that fake joint account, now tailored, now perfect. She greeted the new banker and said, "I'd like to open an account." The banker smiled, "Personal or joint?" She replied, smiling softly, "Personal. I've learned the value of having something that is mine, completely mine." Courtroom of Secrets. Khadijah appeared in court, not as a shattered woman, but as a transformed champion of financial justice. The courtroom was packed. Media, feminists, and curious townspeople sat shoulder to shoulder. Usman came in a suit he could hardly afford anymore. Aminata next to him, looking nervous. They were accused of unauthorized withdrawal from a joint, account forgery of consent forms, identity forgery, conspiracy to defraud. Khadijah's testimony was sharp. She produced every piece of paper, bank statements, records of withdrawals, voice recordings, but it was an undercover video clip that smashed the case. The shocking footage months before, one of Usman's former friends, who had kept Khadijah on her side in silence, sent her a concealed camera recording. In it, Usman was giggling at a bar. "She's too righteous to notice that I stole her money. These holy women know they suspect anything, Aminata, and I knew we had to work fast before she begins questioning things." That video was used as evidence when the judge played it in court. Gasps were heard in the gallery. Aminata was overcome with emotion and cried. Usman looked shocked. Khadijah, she simply closed her eyes. That was when she mentally broke away from the betrayal. The counterattack, but Usman was not finished. He asked to be heard. "I know I did wrong," he stated, but she'd lost her wifely role. She was so fixated on money and class. "I just wanted to regain my manhood." "Cut the drama," said the judge. "You felt like a man for having robbed your wife." Usman looked down. Khadijah did not blink. Her silence was greater than her words. A revelation in court just won the case. Appeared to be sealed. Another bombshell exploded. A third party, an estate agent, stepped forward. He broke to Khadijah that Usman had tried to apply for a loan in her name and with her identity, using her signature forged. The move was thwarted by a mismatch of signatures, but the intention was criminal. Khadijah understood something horrifying. Had she said what she said when she did, he would have ravaged her utterly. Spiritual warfare at home she started having. Weird dreams. In one, Aminata stood outside her door, muttering something nonsensical. In another, she was handing over her soul to Usman in the form of gold coins. She returned to the same prayer house again. The prophetess said to her, "They took more than money. They attempted to take your destiny." But because you voiced your concerns, your voice became your shield. She was advised to fast and pray for 7 days. That week, Khadijatu experienced a vivid dream, climbing a hill barefoot and blood on her feet, but a crown of fire on her head. She awoke tears streaming, not tears of pain, but of rebirth. The documentary and world recognition. A reporter from France 24 contacted her. They wished to include her in a documentary called Banking on Her Voice. African women battling financial betrayal. Khadijatu concurred. The cameras accompanied her to her seminars, courthouse appearances, and savings clubs. When the documentary screened, it went viral in several African nations. Her Instagram followers jumped to OK. Her inbox overflowed with testimonies from Zambia to Zanzibar. One stood out. I thought I was cursed until I saw you fight. Now I know I'm not. Under a curse, I was just quiet. Final verdict. During the final court hearing, the judge decided Usman 7 years imprisonment with no fine, option nominata for years for conspiracy and fraud, a permanent financial restraining order. Neither may access, touch, or benefit from anything associated with Khadijatu. Ever again, Khadijatu didn't party. Instead, she emerged from the courtroom, knelt on the steps, and intoned, "May I never become what hurt me." The Academy. 6 months hence, she debuted the Ba Academy for Financial Truth, an open-source online site that educates women how to read financial reports, signs of economic exploitation, when to say no without shame. Her motto: love with eyes open, build with both hands, protect with all wisdom. She caps off every class with these words: they took what I had, but not who I am. A woman rebuilt. Following the court hearing, Khadijatu turned her attention to healing. Not revenge, not bitterness, just recovery. She didn't dive into motivational speaking. She didn't flaunt her win. Rather, she stepped away quietly. For 6 weeks, she also worked for free at a women's shelter using an alias. They referred to her as Sister Ba. They didn't know her history. They merely knew she listened and never judged. Reconciliation with her daughter Mariama, her single child, had been cold for years. She grew up observing her mother submissive to a man who gave nothing in return. Now, watching her mother stand, not in rage but in dignity, melted her heart. On one rainy night, Mariama appeared at her doorstep. She stood, shivering, clutching her own infant. "Mama, if you'll still welcome us, we wish to return home." Khadijatu opened the door, in arms, speechlessly. 3 generations shared a bed that night. And for the first time in years, the house felt complete. A letter to herself. She sat at her desk one evening and wrote a letter, not to Usman, not to the world, but to the woman she once was. "Dear Khadijatu, thank you for staying when it was unbearable. Thank you for leaving when it became dangerous. Thank you for speaking when silence would have been easier. And thank you for loving again, beginning with yourself." She put the letter in a frame. It hangs on the wall of her home office. The prison visit. She was visited one day by a letter from Usman through the chaplain at the prison. He had read about her academy. He had seen the documentary. He wanted a visit. She said no at first, but the prayer house prophetess called her out of the blue. Forgiveness is not approval, she told him. It's release, and God wants to bless you with light hands, not fists. So Khadijatu went. Inside the cell block, she entered the prison graciously. She passed by whispers of inmates. Usman was thinner, grayer, weaker. He looked like a man who had the burden of every falsehood he uttered. They sat facing each other. "I know I destroyed everything," he said. "You did," she answered, level-headed. "I did not lose you. I lost myself," he breathed. "That never belonged to me to save," she answered. Then she got up, went over to the glass partition, and put her hand on it. "I forgive you, Usman, but forgiveness doesn't grant access." She turned to depart, but before she left, she said, "You thought you shattered me, but you honed me." And now I break their silence for women who were once like me. The whole block was quiet. Even the guards were immobile. That was the last she ever saw of him. The book deal 3 months later, she got a call from a publishing house in the UK. They wanted her story, in her own words, title. Married Without Consent, A Woman's Journey from Silence to Sovereignty. The advance supported 5 additional financial literacy centers in rural West Africa. Her book became mandatory reading in some women's development programs. The legacy. On her 50th birthday, Mariama threw a surprise party. Speakers traveled as far away as Rwanda and Trinidad. Young women recited poems penned in Kadijatu's honor. One sentence brought tears to her eyes. She taught us how to count, not money, but our worth. She was named for a scholarship, and a street in her hometown was renamed Bockeridge Lane. The last dream. One night, years after the accident, she dreamed. She was standing over her younger self, who was huddled in a black room, crying. She bent down and whispered, "Get up, there's still work to do." The younger Kadijatu stood up, smiled, and together they set off towards the rising sun. She woke up smiling. Closing message to women everywhere, to every woman reading this. Even if you gave away your power, you can take it back. Even if they emptied your account, your spirit is still full. You are not dumb, you were trusting. Now, be wise, be bold, be loud. A woman who came back stronger. Kadijatu did not take a victory lap after she won the court case. There were no press conferences, no social media rants. She vanished. People speculated that she had lost her mind, but she was discovering something much more powerful herself. She went back to fundamentals. No staff, no foundation, just herself. And the God she nearly forgot. She sat every morning in silence, not to be quiet, but to listen for what pain had silenced for so long. Mother, daughter, wounds. Her estranged daughter Mariama contacted her 3 months later. "Mama, I was mad at you for staying with him, but I understand now you were only trying to survive." Kadijatu didn't answer right away. When they did meet, she wasn't very talkative. She just put Mariama's childhood sketch once ripped apart by Usman on the table. It had been taped together. "This is us," she whispered. "We were broken, but not beyond repair." Tears welled silently. The letter she never sent. She wrote him a letter she never sent. "Dear Usman, prison suits you. Not because of what you did, but because it reflects the type of cage that you attempted to create for me. I don't despise you. I feel sorry for you. You'll do your time. I have already done mine." She creased it and set it ablaze in the same fire pit where she had incinerated her wedding veil. Returned to the prison. When the prison chaplain invitation arrived, she wavered. Forgive him. Why? But one evening in a dream, she saw her mother dead many years standing outside the gates of a field. "If you don't let him go, he'll continue to haunt your fields," she said. So she wore white, entered that jail, and confronted the man who had kept her quiet for so many years. The conversation. He was older, shorter, in a cage. "I've lost everything," Usman said. "Same here," she said, "but I rebuild," he pleaded. He cried, but she just said, "You do not earn my pity. You earn my forgiveness, but that does not open a door. It closes one." And then she turned and left. Her legacy becomes a curriculum. Kadijatu's tale transcended front pages. It became curriculum. Her nonprofit created a course, Married Without Consent, reclaiming financial and emotional power after abuse. Thousands of women signed up. Some even brought their daughters. In rural villages and city streets, her name wasn't only remembered, it was uttered with respect. International recognition. 1 year later, she got a call from a UN Women's Rights Council. They asked her to address the Geneva Summit on Economic Justice for Women. Her speech was entitled, "The Receipt Wasn't Enough. I Wanted My Voice Back." And when she departed the stage, even the interpreters were wiping away tears. Epilogue. A night in the garden. On her 60th birthday, she had planted a tree in her garden. As she inserted her shovel into the ground, her granddaughter said, "Grandma, why are you planting this by yourself?" Kadajata smiled, "Because I buried pain here. Once. Now I plant power. The camera would pull out here. Were this a movie? You'd be looking at an elderly woman, solitary but not alone, tilling with determination, surrounded by serenity. Surrounded by legacy." Final words to the reader, to every woman reading this. Love shouldn't hurt. Marriage shouldn't silence. And wealth built on fear is no inheritance at all. If they stole your voice, take it back. Use it to construct a louder world for the next girl in line.